Watch me ride.
Hey everybody, I'm going to try and keep this as short and concise as I can, but it's sort of an update on Article 13 because I made a video on Article 13 before there was a vote on it recently, explaining the implications of what could happen with it, and I made a second video which basically just said no, a VPN will not save you, and also remember that just because the UK are leaving the EU, that doesn't mean it won't affect us, because if you watch someone who has a channel in, say, Germany, they're not going to be able to upload, so you will lose their content, so it will still affect you. Okay, so the update is the EU passed Article 13. It's coming into effect. Now, there was a slight difference in wording that's supposedly going to not cause the effects we thought it was going to cause, but I don't believe that to be the case from the wording I've looked at. You know, they've highlighted, yes, fair use is still a thing, and yada yada yada, and that's quite good, because I believe that some countries in the EU don't actually have fair use policies, which is a bit nuts, but that isn't going to solve the problem with YouTube not being able to check all the content and basically having to shut down a lot of people well, everyone in the EU. I think that's still a likely outcome if this, well, it has been voted through. Now, it won't come into effect for a couple of years, and they say that each member state has to actually agree to implement it, which means that they have a choice not to, per country, as it were. That would be great if they could actually just ignore that. Whether they do, that's going to be down to your country that you live in. But I'm talking obviously from the perspective of the UK, and now people are saying, well, you know, it's all right, yeah, they voted it through, but we're leaving the EU anyway, so there's not a problem. Well, as I said in my last video, the early one, when I said, well, how do you know we're leaving the EU? No one knows that yet. And, well, today's the 29th of March, and we're not leaving. So, yeah, it's amazing what it could be possible. A couple of days ago, I made this video, and because we had a load of votes that basically said, because we still don't know our plan to leave the EU, basically they said no to all options. It was like, we don't want this, we don't want that, we don't want any of it. It's like, right, so we literally at this point do not know how, if, when, or with what conditions we will be leaving the EU as the UK. Now, if we don't leave the EU for, say, a couple of years, they will still implement, as I would imagine, these laws into the UK, and that would, you know, mean that we are affected by Article 13. It's equally possible for us to leave the EU, but yet still have some of their rules, their laws and stuff. Now, hopefully, that's something a lot of people don't want. A lot of people want us to take back the control of our own laws so the EU can't govern them. But as we, well, the point of recording this, I'm just going to say anything is possible. Anything is possible, because they can't make their minds up. They've said no to everything, and they're currently still scrabbling around deciding about the extension. Oh, should it be April? Should it be May? Should it be 2 years' time? Should it be longer? Whatever your standing is on leaving the EU doesn't really make too much of a difference to Article 13. If it comes into effect, it's bad. So yes, we might be alright, but then remember that every every creator within the EU, people have moaned at me before about saying European when I meant EU. Sorry, I understand there are some non-EU countries in Europe, okay? I get it, I just slipped in my tongue. This is not just about YouTube, this is far, far deeper reaching. This actually, the real thing you want to worry about is that it comes down to it being censorship. The EU's laws on the internet are now stronger than China's. Well, that's what's being suggested. I don't know if that's actually true, but the censorship levels of it is quite unbelievable. What it will mean is only large corporations will be able to have the systems in place to be able to still put content up for everyone to see, which means that small independent news sources and things like that are going to go away, and that's something, as we all know, we don't want to happen. The more small independent news sources you can find, the more accurate your news generally gets, because, you know, the mass media cannot just whitewash a situation and say, well, this is our events of the situation, and that's that. So, long story short with this one is, well, we now know that Article 13 was voted in. That is terrible, and, well, with that many people voting against it, it feels corrupt in ways. It's unbelievable that these people, still with smiles on their faces, decided to vote through what they did. It's disgusting. But it is what it is. So now the question is, will the UK be affected by it? And as I say, a lot of people are going to say, no, we're fine, we're leaving the EU. That is not the case yet. I think it is likely that we won't be affected by it, because, God, if we don't leave after we voted to leave, and if we do leave but we somehow still have their rules, people are going to be pissed. So, yeah, that is the situation with it currently. The curious thing about it, though, is if you're a YouTuber and you are pro-Remain, you've kind of just had your hand forced to be pro-Leave, because, well, if you Remain, you'll lose your channel, quite possibly. You know? Bizarre times we are living in. Feels like it's not real, but God, it is, and that's the thing people have to remember. If you don't fight for these things, they'll just keep pushing them on us. And even if we do fight for it, they still push it on us. Is it 5-6 million signatures? Pff, nuts. Anyway, if you found this video useful, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll catch you next time.